Hey everybody, welcome to Entertainment 411. I'm your guest host, Bobby Del Rio. We got a special treat for you. We got the director and one of the stars from our movie Field Sketches. But before we get into that, let's start with the trailer.
I feel like maybe we got off on the wrong foot in this meeting.
Dad, what are you thinking?
We've talked about this over and over again.
Don't you care about design? I mean, come on, what happened to you?
You can't lie to her, Dad.
I'm not lying. Look, what's going on? Fresh, you think this is easy for me? I don't know. I'm even thinking about selling the house.
Oh, wow. I thought that you were this great success and this great catch, and now I'm just like...
Look, I'm me. All right? I'm not the firm. I'm not the house.
Stand around there, steady fella. Hey.
I'll come and see you at the farm. I always dreamed of getting out of here. I wanted to know what the world was like out there.
Hi, Dad.
Your old man here's a little crazy. And he's a terrible farmer, too.
Ladies and gentlemen, director Carl Bessai and star Vincent Gale. Welcome.
Nice. Thanks, Bobby.
Welcome. And I hear you're big Oilers fans, but I don't see the Oilers jerseys, but they're implied, right?
Can you just feel the intensity? It's the Western final, but it's really the semifinals, you know.
Right. Well, which one of you gets to wear the Connor McDavid jersey, or do you have to fight it out for it?
I don't have one, you know. All my nephews and cousins and all the brothers that live in Alberta still, they're insane. They have
and I'm not a true hockey fan. Like, I'm a fair weather fan because I really only come out at the playoffs.
But that's look. This is most people. This is the most Canadian thing you've said yet.
Yeah. No. So yeah, I just come out for the playoffs, and I didn't spend. I mean, Carl, how many years did you live in Edmonton?
And I grew up there and stayed till I was around. I mean, I lived in Edmonton through all the Gretzky years and all the big cup wins and the parties on Jasper Avenue, and you know, it was like that was my youth, and you know, that's kind of your foundation, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So you leave town and you never live there again, but it stays with you a little bit. And now, you know, the Oilers they used to call Edmonton the city of champions when I lived there. And then it became kind of this semi-embarrassing concept, the city of champions. And you kind of wondered what that referred to, because the Oilers were no longer a good team. And it seemed like kind of a Deadsville, you know, and they're having this wonderful resurgence, you know, because of Connor and some of the great players. And so, yeah, it's become really exciting for the city again. I have a brother who's one of the composers of our movie. His name is Frank Bessai, and he's a violinist. So he actually shows up in the movie a couple times, but it's his violin playing in the score. And he's got a mariachi band that plays in the streets. So whenever the Oilers win, they play La Bamba. And there's this whole kind of mariachi vibe. And the band goes out into the square and really busks, every game. It's hilarious.
That's great. Well, we'll do a live stream from there. But let's start right at the beginning, because I know. I mean, I've been hearing about both of you for years. And you know, there's a lot of people in our audience. They want to figure out, well, how you know, they look up to you. How did they become actors and directors? So maybe if you could start with just like how did you actually like break into the industry? How did you get started?
Well, I'll start. I guess for me, it was really tough. I was kind of a flailing documentary cameraman in Toronto, and I, you know, was working here and there and was learning a lot, but, you know, I wasn't making much money. I was struggling, and I decided I needed to go into the bigger movie space. I became a camera trainee, which is essentially the bottom of the camera department. And I was working on big Hollywood movies and learning to become a film loader. And then I became a film loader. And so I worked in the industry that way for a bunch of years. And it was super tough work, really hard, really long hours. Back then, the film industry was not as genial and supportive and friendly as it is today. It was aggressive. It was kind of kill or be killed. And if you didn't have the kind of stomach for it, you quit really quickly. And I stayed with it because I really wanted to learn. And I had experiences like I worked for Fred Elms, who shot Blue Velvet. I had really amazing kind of mentors in the bigger picture. And I remember sitting down with Fred one day at lunch on set of a film that Gus Van Sant was directing. And I was a kid, I was really new at this. And Fred said, "So what do you want to do? What's your plan?" And he kind of could tell my plan wasn't to keep doing this, it was so hard. And I said, "I want to do what you do, man. I want to shoot. I want to be at the top. I want to make pictures, And he said, "Well, then I think you should just do it. Like, don't wait too long to be asked, to be invited, to be given your shot. Go out and, find a way." And that's what I did. And my first movie was inspired by the Dogma 95 movement, which is a Danish movement for kind of minimalist filmmaking. And Lars von Trier was my hero. And I hit the road, and we made our first movie in 99, which is 26 almost years ago. And it hit the Toronto Film Festival, which was a huge opener for me. So
amazing. What an amazing journey. And Vincent, how about you? How'd you get started?
I grew up in Britain, in Scotland, and my mum was involved in the arts. She was a music teacher at the Royal Academy of Music and Drama in Glasgow, and my family, we were all enrolled in musical programs. We played violin and piano and all sorts of instruments all through my life. But as a child, I used to kind of roam the halls of the Royal Academy, and I used to see these kids coming out of these rooms, and they were really, really boisterous and full of life. And I said to my mom, "What are they doing?" And she said, "Oh, those are the drama kids." And I said, "Well, that's what I want to do." And so she enrolled me in a class there, and this was in the 70s. And they used to have directors from the BBC come through quite often, and they would just audit classes when they were casting, and they would sit in a corner and watch a class. And I just got a call one day, and I went for an audition at the Beeb, and I ended up in a television series. And I sort of never looked back. That was, this is like almost my 5th decade in the business now, and it's all I've ever done. It's getting harder and harder to eke out a living in this industry that has really supported me and been a friend to me for so long, but it's just getting harder and harder. So yeah, it's all I've ever done. I didn't go to acting school. I took acting classes along the way, and I always kind of thought I would go to a conservatory or I would take a BFA program at some point, and I just kept working, and so that's just what I did. So I really kind of learned on the job.
Well, that's the best way. I mean, I'm speaking of on the job. I mean, you've worked together before, right? This movie is not your first collaboration, right?
No, I mean, Vince was in Fathers and Sons and Mothers and Daughters. These were really, just really interesting projects to work on because they were largely improvised. They were made in a very collaborative spirit and kind of set the tone for the type of work that I'm most interested in, the kind of work that I've been doing for the last, since then, 10, 15 years. And when I approached Vince about Field Sketches, it was in that spirit. It was like, look, I've written something, but let's meet and talk and let's spend time with it and see if we can, we can tune this and create something together, So the idea was that the script writing was this first step, and then we would bring a talented ensemble together, and then we'd have these conversations, and we'd meet every couple of weeks, and I'd do rewrites based on the things we were discovering and the way the film was evolving. And this was such a beautiful way to work, because when you start to shoot the film, everyone who's in the film has helped create that experience. Sort of, yeah, it's a very unusual. It's like having an extended rehearsal, and I like that. I like that. So to me, collaborating with actors as a part of the whole scripting process, is I think it's a great way to work. It's a bit like born from the Mike Lee, Ken Loach style. Find willing and interesting collaborators and bring them in early.
And Carl's so generous that way. It's not, he doesn't just want you to stand on your mark and learn your lines. He wants all of you. He wants everything that you can bring and everything that you can mine. And that's a real gift as a performer and a collaborator. It's generous.
So I was reading in your bio, Carl. John Cassavetes is big influence for you, right?
Yeah.
It just strikes me as you talk about the process, both of you. That because he did the same thing, right? He had these actors, movies together.
I mean, Cassavetes was going to make the movie whether you wanted him to or not. He had this passion for filmmaking, and he used his Hollywood career to kind of fuel his life, and then he'd take whatever he could scrape together, and he'd bring his ensemble together, and they'd start working on it, and the films have an immediacy, they have a rawness, they have a kind of the methodology, the imperfection, if you will, of a John Cassavetes movie is its asset. And I'm really fascinated by this because, we talk a lot about, now the conversation is AI, but we talk a lot about the film industry over time. And I've watched it change over time from being kind of a film-based medium into this digital world. But still, every year, the filmmaking grows. It grows and grows and grows. The crews get bigger and bigger and bigger. The budgets get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now we're talking about, I remember when it was the first $100 million movie, and that was insane. No one could believe it.
Now we're talking about $400 million.
This is a world that I find astonishing. And as a crew worker, I still sometimes go out as little as I can humanly do it, because it's so hard and I'm getting too old for it. But I still sometimes go out and do like day calls on lighting jobs. And so I was on the latest of the Tron movies that was shooting in Vancouver. Just did a few nights,
Yeah.
I went out there because I wanted to see what that was like. What are they doing these days? And it's insane. I mean, the scale is so insane. The volume is so insane. The amount of equipment, the amount of personnel. It's an army, and none of it has, in my view, to do with. It doesn't have much to do with human experience. I don't know what's happening here with the sound.
Are we okay with that sound?
We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
So, Bobby, this idea that the giant industrial machinery that goes into making films. I mean, you think about it this way: like if you go back into the automotive, make an automotive analogy, the Ford Motor Plant would use industrial practices to create the perfect car on the assembly line each and every time. I'm sure that sound is baked. I can't imagine it's working.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to make an impact, but I think if we fight through, we'll be okay.
All right. But, so that you understand the importance of that. They want to have a guaranteed outcome at the end of the assembly line experience. So every time the film gets made in this sort of industrial machinery, they execute in a certain way to guarantee an outcome. Now, what did John Cassavetes do? What are we trying to do? The opposite. I want the mistakes and the exploration that's happening live in the moment to be part of the narrative. I'm not interested in executing a perfect vision. I'm interested in what are the moment by moment happenings, accidents, and discoveries that make a film, to me, real and personal and visceral. I want to have those things in my movie. You can't script those things, and you can't predetermine or pre-visualize those things. So for me, and again, this is just a working methodology. It's not a judgment. It's not like one is right and one is wrong. But in my artistic practice, I'm not interested in in hiring someone to make storyboards and then following those storyboards to execute the shots exactly the way they were pre-visualized. I don't want that. I want to go to a place. I want to see it with my eyes. I want to pull my camera out and I want to start exploring. I want to start looking for things. I want to spend the time discovering, and I want the actors to do the same. And when they make a discovery, I'm there with the lens. I'm capturing the discovery. So we're explorers. We're adventurers.
Let's talk to you a bit about that, Vincent, because that was my sense. Just again, what I got from you and the research that I did, and I've heard about you for a long time. I've been in the industry for a long time. I was a programmer at Real World for 5 years, so I've tracked filmmakers for a very long time, and it just seemed to me that collaboration was really key to what you're doing. So, Vincent, let's get to you. I mean, you've been one of his key collaborators on a few different films now. What's that experience like? It's very different, right?
It is. It is for the filmmaking process, Bobby. I do a lot of theater, or have done a lot of theater over the last 40 odd years in the business, and I came to the industry thinking that I really was interested in film and television, and what I discovered was that I was really more interested in theater. Like when I was on stage, when I was in it wasn't even being on stage, it was being in the rehearsal room was the greatest time I ever have as an actor, because that's where all the discoveries come from. That's where the play happens. No one's watching you yet, so you have all these opportunities to make mistakes. You can fall down, you can try again. So for me, the rehearsal hall is everything. And working with Carl is as close to being in the rehearsal hall as I've ever been on a film set, because it's all, as he was explaining, it's all process, and nothing's wrong. There is no finite idea. We're not searching for this piece of gold. The gold is in what we're doing. It's in the mistakes that we're making. So that's the easiest way for me to kind of try to explain it to you.
No, I think you did a very good job. I'm a theater guy as well, right? So I've been doing this for a long time myself.
Right.
That was always something to me that was lost in film and television, as you both, I think, have alluded to, right? Is the creative juice, the synergy, the relationships, exploration. I mean, we're artists, and it's so refreshing to hear that people are still doing that.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, and in the theater, I collaborate with a great director named Michael Shimada, who is the artistic director of the Belfry Theater in Victoria. And Michael and I have done 10 or 12 shows together now over the last 20 years, and it's one of my greatest joys. Having that relationship, and the relationship that Carl and I have forged too over the last 20 years. Again, it's so special. It's what I always hoped I would one day. I just always hoped that I would find people because that could bring out the best in me, because I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I mean, when you're performing, you're just trying to throw everything out there, and then what I'm looking for is an editor, someone who can really see what I'm doing and then take me somewhere else, or refine what I'm doing, or hone it in some way. And that's when I work with Michael in the theater, and when I work with Carl on film. That's it's just a great level of trust, and I can only do what I'm doing because of what they're doing with me.
Well, look, this process sounds great. Let's talk about the product, because I want to learn more about the movie. I mean, first of all, it's so interesting individually and together, like how you make the work. But let's talk about this project specifically. What's it about?
Well, I think to start, I have to say it's personal. You know, the film comes from me at a time when I'm kind of a late middle-aged guy thinking about my work and what it means and what it's like to raise money and find creative work and what the satisfaction level of that is. And so I wanted to make kind of an allegory about that experience that I'm having as a filmmaker. And I didn't really want to make a movie about a filmmaker. So I chose an architect because I think architecture, my brother's an architect. I know quite a bit about architecture, and I love the parallels between cinema and architecture. One of the main parallels is that both are art forms that require a lot of collaboration. They require a lot of scale. They require a certain amount of industry to be realized. So that I like that analogy. And so in the film, Field Sketches is the story of Peter, played by Vince, who's an architect. And he's gotten to the point in his life where he's feeling like the big architecture firm, the practice that's kind of doing big corporate projects isn't speaking to him anymore. And he wants to downsize, and he wants to go back to a creative root, the sort of essence of what got him started in the first place. He's uninspired by the chase for the big budget stuff. And his partner, who's David Cubitt's character, is happy as a clam moving in this giant direction, and they part ways. But of course, with that departure comes all the problems that you enter into as a director in film that works in the way I work. It's very difficult to convince financiers to put money into something that they can't see pre-visualized. They can't see it. They don't know exactly what you're talking about. It's the reason why John Cassavetes could never raise much money for his projects, because no one really knows what they're going to get. And that's the magic of it, you know? So you have the artistic freedom, but you know, the price you pay is a sort of, you struggle, you know? And so in this narrative, in this kind of fictional tale, the architect who can't really make a go of it as an artistic man decides, you know, I'm done. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to just contemplate what it is to be a creative man at this time in my life. And he decides to go off into the wilderness. He picks the land that his family has still in Saskatchewan. It's a farm. He goes there. He decides to go for a year to winter there. And it's a bit of a throw to Henry Thoreau, who is a famous writer from the 1800s, who similarly kind of checked out of society to go and just live in a cabin in the woods. And you know, what does that mean? What is that like? And how is my life different now? And what am I thinking about? What am I preoccupied with day to day? And of course, for Peter, sitting out in Saskatchewan, it's cold. He needs a lot of firewood. He's lonely. He starts hearing things. He starts seeing things, imagining things. And all of this helps shape his kind of view of his life and the world going forward. And I mean, it's complicated, but it's a kind of magic reel, experiential movie, mostly set in the middle of nowhere, to sort of test these ideas of creativity and this place that we're in, you know? And I mean, what's the conclusion? What happens? I mean, you know, I think Peter, like me, feels kind of bolstered by the experience and realizing that, you know, at the root, you are this work that you do. It's a really important part of your humanness. And Peter and Carl need to keep at it, need to keep working at it. It's not easy.
No, definitely not.
Film, yeah.
Well, okay, so Vincent, how was it to play that role? I mean, that's quite challenging. There's a lot of levels to that.
Yeah, well, again, as Carl was saying, it's a role that really met me where I am, because there's no, I'm not inventing anything. I'm not putting anything over top. It's just like this. I am a man of middle age, not even middle age.
Well,
like
we just generously call ourselves middle age.
I'm an old man who is wrestling and reckoning with a changing world in the same way that Peter is in his practice. So there was very little to be done other than experience it and be in the moment.
Well, that's good casting, right?
Yeah, and this is a conversation we're having now with you, but we have all the time. You know, it's a conversation that influences what we're writing about, what we're making stories about, how we're collaborating as director and actor. Vince has kind of been my muse for this project and a new one that I'm working on right now. You know, this idea that you sort of have these thoughts and experiences and you want to translate them through the medium. And sometimes it's playful and funny, and sometimes it's serious and depressing. But it's why do you make films? I mean, it's a terrible thing to say in this very commercial business. I don't make films to entertain people. I hope that they're entertaining, but I make films because I'm looking for answers. I'm exploring. That's why I make films. I'm not that interested in doing a song and dance that's super fun and entertaining. I'm more interested in the experience. Now that's a tough sell for some people. You know, a lot of people just want to kick back and be relaxed and be entertained. I believe that storytelling is right after building the fire and feeding yourself. It's the next most important thing to the human race. You know, to tell a story, to have culture, to have this idea of narrative. I mean, it's so fundamental. So I you know, but I think that exploring, you know, what do I make this for? Because I'm trying to understand something. I'm asking questions.
So we were talking about AI off camera before the interview started, and it just strikes me now as you talk about it's really interesting your film too, right? In this context, because it's really like the beginning of civilization and humanity and who we are. And as a film industry, and I definitely want to get both your takes on this, we're starting to move into this existential place where the technology is becoming, I don't know, like a character or maybe the antagonist itself. It's like there's a lot of existential conversations about AI, the role of the person, the artist, the human. How do you think technology, maybe AI specifically, is going to be disrupting this sort of artistic path, shall we say?
Well, I mean, you know, I talk about this a lot now because, I mean, we all do. It's just really a big part of our conversation, our collective conversation. I think the beauty of humanity, to me, the beauty of the artist and artistic work, and why I don't think it will ever go away, is that the human being is a flawed creature. The human being is someone who strives, often fails, makes mistakes. It's never perfect. I mean, why do we watch sports, Bobby? We watch sports because sports we're hoping to see the realization of the potential of the athlete that's in front of us. But there is always the possibility that they won't make it. They won't win. They will fail, or they will try. But it's the drama of the human failings. The drama is what makes it interesting. If you had perfection, it's boring. If you had robots playing hockey, it's not interesting. If you had robots running a 100-meter race, all crossing the line in 7 seconds flat, I mean, who would be interested in seeing that? It's the narrative that the human failure and the potential for human failure is so dramatic. And so as a filmmaker, I like that. That's why I embrace flaws, mistakes, discovery, the kind of patina of real things. Like, for example, in Field Sketches, I wanted to shoot a film set partly in my family homestead in Saskatchewan because it's a sacred place to me. It still exists. It's in this little middle of nowhere near Regina. It's an old farm. My father grew up there. They were German immigrants. They came from Europe. They set up this tiny little house in the middle of nowhere and struggled. This was 2 generations ago. And what's interesting to me is that stuff is still there. You go into this little cabin and you can see the patina on the walls. You can see the smoke damage from the old whale oil lamps that they use to light it at night. I mean, it's just primal, you know, and that human struggle, that human experience is, I just think it's fascinating. And I don't think there's anything wrong with AI. I mean, AI is a tool and it's coming. We're all using it, and you might as well figure out what your relationship to it is. But I'm going to make use of it to make more flawed, more mistakes, or human films, because I think that's what people actually want to see. I think that's what they want to see. That's what I want to see.
How about you, Vincent? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what to say about that other than the genie's out of the bottle.
Mm.
It's coming. And in many respects, it's already here. I don't know that it's going to, I'm at the end of my career, or, like deep into
I mean, you guys are middle-aged. Come on.
the last quarter of it.
Middle.
So I can't imagine that what I do will be replaced with AI just yet. I think we're probably, I say that, maybe I'm completely wrong.
Well, I think there's two kinds of work that are going to be done. I mean, my friend Zach, who's a younger director than I am, was like kind of on the same kind of career track as me, but more in the commercial space. He just directed Final Destination 5, biggest grossing film in the world. I mean, Zach is very, very skilled, and he's very gifted at kind of that navigation with these tools, this kind of giant scale, this giant world. Denis Villeneuve, another person that I can't quite claim as a friend, but certainly a colleague of mine, a guy I know.
And a contemporary.
His dream and aspiration was to work at this level, to work on this scale. Denis, doing Dune, and when he makes Dune, I mean, they're screaming at him to work in this, in these very modern studio spaces that have the huge volume walls that create kind of all of the worlds around, so they don't have to take the crew out of the city. And he fought to go to the desert because he wanted to shoot in the desert. He wanted the patina of the reel. He wanted the sand and and it's not just the look, because you can do a lot in the computer to make something look great. But imagine the difference for an actor standing in the heat in the desert and being hungry or tired or thirsty or hot, that all of the experiences of being there versus being in the comfort of a stage.
100%. But at the same time, and I have worked in the volume, because I've done mocap for video games, and there's something really freeing and beautiful about that work too, because again, it goes back to the rehearsal hall where you really feel like you're a child playing again, which kind of distills what we do into its essence.
To me, one of the most important things for a creative team, I think, regardless of scale, regardless of size of budget, I feel like I watched when I was young, I was saying I did this movie and I was a camera assistant, and I watched Gus Van Sant direct. And, Gus is even at this time, was a pretty huge director. It was a Nicole Kidman film, it was a big deal. And the guy's like a pretty famous director, and I'm watching him work, and he's a kid and he's sitting around. He's playfully conversing with the actor. The camera's rolling and rolling and rolling. And I'm running magazine after magazine to film out to this set because he won't stop. It was a playground for him.
Yeah.
And I learned from him, just watching him, that's important. Like, maintain this sense of playfulness. And I think one of the things I've learned to hate as a filmmaker, when I watch film sets, or I go on, jobs sometimes, or I'm on maybe a TV series, whatever, if I'm observing, I see often this endless stopping, this kind of very kind of tech forward, slow boat where very little time is spent playing. It's all about setups. It's all about, the clock, and no one ever gets to run. No one ever gets to go through a scene. You break a script down, you're shooting an eighth of a page for 4 days. I mean, it's mind numbing.
Well, it's not only breaking it down to that essence. What I found increasingly since the pandemic and since work became back up and running, the number of times that I will be on a series or a movie of the week or a feature, and you don't get from action to cut. You don't ever run the whole scene. People, I don't know how to express this properly, but the scene gets so broken up, and they know that all they need are these pieces, and if they can put all these pieces together later. And so what I find is that the only thing that's interesting as an actor is between action and cut. It's that moment where you are playing the scene. Right. And that doesn't happen as much anymore. because you're picking things up in the middle. And if people drop a line, you just go from there. So you never get the continuity that you do in the theater and that you used to get in front of the camera of going from action to cut. And in that kind of time that is suspended, like literally suspended.
And, you know, when we did Fathers and Sons, and, you know, I've done now, I think 4 or 5 improvised movies. Think about improvising a movie or improvising a scene. You have to start at the beginning and you have to go through to the end. And the first take is a kind of big ramble of actors kind of overplaying, overstating the scene. Maybe, you know, there's a lot of conversation that maybe you don't need, but you comb through it a bunch of times. You just keep rolling through these long, beautiful takes, and slowly but surely the actors find a kind of, you know, you work with them, but you see them find the moments.
You're polishing it.
Yeah,
right? You're polishing it all the time.
Suddenly you've kind of written a script, even though nothing's written down, but you've got kind of the structure in place now. And then, you know, and you've heated it up with multiple takes. And it's a joy because you're playing a whole scene. You play a whole scene.
There's nothing
and
better.
It's a scene you've played that you wrote, you invented.
Yeah.
How fun is that? You know?
Well, this is what we're doing, right? I mean, it's funny, Vincent, as you talk about, you know, taking out the pieces. That's such an interesting way to look at it, right? So, especially coming from the theater, storytelling. You know, like I'm kind of looking at the story of this film here in the context of, you know, you guys have this long relationship, you're decades in the business, you still look like you're in your 30s, you could go to the club, you know, you could do all that, you know, but you know, you put your time in, you understand the craft, you respect the craft, and we're moving into an industry that people are afraid of. You know, there's a lot of unemployment, there's a lot of fears about tech. And so as an industry, we're having all these conversations about what's the future. And this is actually one of the questions that we have here that we ask every week. How would you like to see the Canadian entertainment industry change? Because we are in a time of change, a lot of fear. But what do you think we need to do as an industry?
Well, I mean, Carl, I'm going to go first because Carl's got
this is a hot topic.
This is a hot topic for Carl, and I know he's going to take up a lot of space.
F-bomb, Carl.
And he should, because he's got a lot of great ideas. But and we have argued this before. But I always like to think that there's a reason that there are so many venerated Canadian musicians. And it's because of what CanCon did in the 70s. It was because of what radio stations were required to do. They were required to play certain music. They were required to play the music of the people of their country. And out of that, we saw this explosion in the 90s of Sarah McLachlan and Alanis Morissette and Shania Twain and Celine Dion and these people, these women who just conquered the world. Yeah. But it was because there was there was a road, there was a paved road for them, so to speak, with CanCon, and that's never really been done for film or television. I mean, certainly we have our broadcasters, but I think, I mean, one of the things I've always thought is that the multiplexes should have been enforced to play Canadian films. Like there's a reason why there's a star system and an incredible industry in Quebec. There's a reason for that. It's because people, you have to be, by and large, you have to be told what you want to watch and what you want to see and what you want to listen to. And when you are, then you'll look for it and find it and enjoy it. But anyway, I just opened that door great. I
100% agree with everything you're saying. I mean, it was a fight for me between my kind of first maybe 10, almost 15 years of my career. I spent a lot of time arguing about this stuff, championing, you know, talking to the CRTC, getting on committees. You know, I started working with the film festival, Whistler, on the board in the early days of the festival, because I really believed that there was an opportunity there to have a Canadian competition. And the idea I felt was like, look, I'd been to Sundance. Sundance was, especially when I was there, early 2000s, it was an incredible experience. I mean, it was just a hotbed, right? You go and you just are like blown away by the enthusiasm for independent film, American independent film, and I thought, well, why aren't we doing that here? And I go up to Whistler. I'm in this, very small festival up there, which had started, I think, a couple years earlier. And they had like 10 or 12 films in the program. And and I took the woman out to lunch, and I just said, the woman who was doing the programming, and I just said, this town is great. There's an opportunity here. Come on, let's step this up and get a competition going and like make this a buzz place, So the idea that you sort of shine a spotlight on Canadian culture through your organizations, to me, like, that's key. Toronto Film Festival, early days in my career, always had a Canadian section, a Canadian spotlight. There was an argument that was made after a certain amount of time that was like, well, we've grown up, we don't need that anymore.
No, it's not true.
And it's not true. And so now, and I love TIFF. I think TIFF is still like the greatest festival in Canada, and it's a really important place to try to start showing your work. But the truth is that it is a launch pad for Hollywood studio movies, respect. They need to get bums in seats.
100%.
That's how it works, But if you don't legislate a lens on Canadian culture, there isn't going to be any. And I thought, Bobby, it was really interesting when Donald Trump got elected, and suddenly we're having this whole elbows up conversation, and everyone's like super, super excited about Canadian culture. And I was laughing a bit to myself because I thought, well, look, I'll take it. But it's about time, Why does it take Donald Trump, an American, like him or not, whatever you think of him isn't the point of this conversation. The point is, why does it always take an American to show us, to get us to pay attention to our cultural needs? I mean, this is absurd. I live in a city, Vancouver, where 99% of the industry is service. Look, again, respect. People want jobs, and this is the largest, West Coast cinema. Like the business here is huge. It's very important that those Hollywood jobs come to Canada. We incentivize those jobs with tax incentives. We have a low dollar. Like there's all these reasons why they come. But the simple fact is, when they decide to turn the tap off, that's it. The tap turns off. They turn it off. We don't have control over this tap. That's it. And in my opinion, if you want to have a film industry, better start making some domestic work. Why is it that everyone who aspires to be a great director in Canada has to go and make their way through the United States? We all do it. Everyone does it over and over again. Why is it that you can't stay here and make a living? I mean, name the greatest Canadian directors that you can think of. You'd probably Norman Jewison went to America. Denis Villeneuve went to America. Jean-Marc Vallée went to America. Now my friend Zach, of course, why would you can't begrudge this guy? He's getting $50 or $100 million budget to make a giant movie that's going out on 1 million screens and is making $100 million on the opening weekend. That's a big deal. Seth Rogen's doing his studio show, and he's making fun of this stuff, and it's hilarious. You can't begrudge these Canadians for wanting to have a bigger stage. You can't begrudge them. But why is it that we've never managed to make a stage, or let's say any stage, in the country known as Canada? How come? Now, what's our problem? But you don't have a culture, you don't have a country. Culture is everything. This is what Quebec has shown us, So we're in a little moment where people are paying attention to culture again. They're saying, oh, culture is important. Culture is important. It was great for field sketches. We booked theaters. We're showing our movie. People are kind of, for the moment, interested in, oh, it's a Canadian film. Great. Let's check that out. We don't see a lot of these. Yeah. But it's sad to me that I've been doing this. I mean, this is my 22nd or 3rd feature film. And, that's a lot. Oh, yeah. I've struggled more today than I have. I'm struggling in the same way that I always have. It's the same battle every time. There's there's very like there actually no, Bobby, it's worse.
It's worse.
I used to be able to go to a couple of paid TV stations and a couple of distributors, and maybe I'd top it off with a foreign sales pre-buy, and I could finance a movie. Now I'm like, you know, my budgets are going down, and I'm struggling to get any kind of financing out of Canada. Like most of the financing I get, honestly, it comes from American distributors, UK distributors and sales companies. It's foreign money. Why is that? You know, this is tough. These are tough topics, Bobby, because without any money in the pipe, you don't have a system. Someone said to me the other day, they go, "Hey, Carl, I have this idea. Why don't we have a Canadian Netflix?" They said. They said, "Oh, I just thought of this." And I mean, I have to laugh. Yeah, and it's just, great idea. There is a Canadian streaming app. It's called Gem. It's run by the CBC. And write your representative and ask them to get Gem to buy more movies or to show more movies. Like it really should be the clearinghouse for all Canadian films.
Everything should
or
be
the National Film Board, which was a lion of an organization once upon a time. It's been gutted. And, you know, there is no place where a Canadian can go and watch a library of Canadian movies. I mean, it's Gem, but Gem doesn't have very much, and it's about money, you know, and it's crazy to me.
It's also, I mean, Carl is in a fortunate position because a lot of the work that he's done has been digitized, but you know, there's tons of filmmakers and actors who have done work in this country over the last 25 or 30 years. None of that work is available anymore because it hasn't been digitized. It's still sitting around.
If you want to see Carl Bessai movies, you got to go to Tubi, America. They're available through America. And America is smartly, because America is a business-oriented country, and Tubi's available in Canada, of course.
And this is, Bobby, this is just passion. It's not
grinding.
It's not.
So, Bennett, why are you yelling at me? I didn't do it. I understand. Look, I agree with every word you say. Like I said, I was the Canadian feature programmer at Real World for 5 years.
Nice.
Yes.
So I'm very familiar. You know, I've also made some films myself, and it's a challenge. And I agree with everything you're saying. And this is where we're at. We can't solve all the problems in one podcast, but we can watch your film. It's June 11th, I think.
Toronto, June 11th.
Toronto and June 11th. We'll plug it again. I just want to because we have a few questions. This is the last one. I want to make sure you guys get a chance to watch the hockey game. Good.
Thanks, Bobby.
You know what I mean? We do like to end off about mentors, because there's a lot of people, they're looking at you as mentors. That's, I think, why a lot of people watch this podcast, and they're searching for their own podcast, their own mentors. They're trying to find a way to navigate themselves. So what about mentors? Like, have you had mentors? You referenced a few people. Can you talk about the value of mentors and how they've shaped your work?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm always starting, but I mean, a mentor doesn't.
You started last time, so don't worry. You're good, Carl.
A mentor doesn't have to be someone it doesn't even have to be someone you know personally. You know, I think you can be inspired and learn from anyone out there. You know, now if you're lucky and you have a physical relationship, then that's amazing. I mean, when I was young, I had the early days, like I think my third movie, I got to work with Sir Ian McKellen, and it made it possible for me to stay connected to him through my whole life. Like, I recently was in England and I saw him in a play, and, you know, we're friends. He's my reference when I apply for things. I mean, having someone who's spent his life struggling and also succeeding and being a champion of an underclass as a gay man in the UK, he was always an inspiration. And I loved how, despite how famous he was, how incredibly personable he was. You know, he's always someone who's made time for everyone. I don't know how he does it. It's a huge amount of energy, but I think that it was really important for me growing as a film director to watch someone with incredible talent, skill, and this pedigree be so generous with his time. And it's why, like, I'm a small fish in a tiny pond compared to Sir Ian, but it's important as a lesson, you know, to try to remind myself to always be humble, open-minded, and available. You know, I think as I get older, I do a lot more mentoring now through my union, through the Directors Guild, but also I teach some acting classes. I work with one of the film schools. I really like the experience of working with younger filmmakers because they are where I was a long time ago, and they have such technical skills. You know, they've grown up with the media that I never had, you know, and so there's incredible learning that goes both ways. And I like that. I like being able to still learn as I go. Like the latest film that Vince and I are working on, which is going to come out next year, you know, it was largely collaborating with graduates from film school, like recent graduates from film school and young actors, and then combining them with vets like Vince and myself. It's a really fun dialogue that you have, you know? So I like that. I think that's important.
Sir Carl Bessai.
Man,
Sir Vincent Gale.
If only. I've never really. It's interesting. It feels like a bit of a deficit, but I can't really identify mentors, so to speak. I can identify people who have really inspired me. And you know, and a lot of them are really close to home. Like my wife is a huge inspiration. You know, she's been my biggest champion. My greatest, where's my language? My greatest asset in the world and in everything I do. And her father, her father also was a huge inspiration. He's a legendary track and field coach in Canada, Doug Clement. And, you know, these are just really good, smart, sensible people who have amazing advice that fits any bill, whether you're talking about show business or professional athletics or anything. You know, I'm constantly looking to my extended family for inspiration and support.
That's kind. I have to say, you guys are awesome. Like you're just really, really nice people. People I root for. No, I really do mean that sincerely. You're very experienced, but like you. I get it. I've interviewed like hundreds of people now, and you just get a sense for people, and you guys are good dudes. And I really do hope that everyone is going to watch your movie and support you. So just tell us a little bit about where we can see it. What are your socials? Where can we follow you? All of the things.
So our remaining tour, we did our screenings here in Vancouver, so those are done. Not to say we won't do more, but you know where we're at on our tour. So now on June 11th, we're playing at the Review Cinema in Toronto, which is on Roncesvalles. Beautiful little indie theater. It's just one night. It's at 6:45. We're going to be there, and we're hoping to bring a lot of friends and family. But we're keen to get a good house, so that'll be fun. And we'll do a Q&A. And my friend Steve Gravestock, who used to be the TIFF programmer.
Yeah, I know Steve. Steve was like a mentor for me when I was at Real World.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Steve's a wonderful guy. And so he's going to be our host and kind of do our Q&A and just hang out with us after the movie. Right. And then we go to Saskatchewan. We're screening on the 28th of June at the Regina Public Library Theater in Regina. Sounds like a library. It is the library, but it's also it's the indie film theater in the city of Regina. So that's a nice night. And we're being hosted by another filmmaker whom I know from the University of Regina there. And then on July 4th, we're going to be screening in Edmonton. But Edmonton, we're doing something a little different. We're doing we're taking out a kind of art space, and we're doing a combination of screening and sort of music night, because the musicians who worked on the film are also in a band from Edmonton, and this is my brother and his band, and so they're gonna play a set. We're gonna screen the film. We're gonna have a bar. It's gonna be a great. And this is on Friday. We thought it would be cheeky to do Independence Day U.S. July 4th,
Canadian
Film
film.
Night, Canadian Film and Music Night.
Right.
So that's at the Artona Arts Hab in Edmonton, Alberta. And that's where we are so far. I'm looking at some opportunities in Victoria and other cities. If you have any suggestions or any nice indie theaters, kind of come knocking. I mean, we're keen to screen more. So yeah, that's it.
That's
and then
a
we're
lot.
going to go out on streaming through probably Tubi again. My distributor has a lovely relationship with those guys. So that's probably a thing. I don't know when exactly, but soonish. And social media, I'm at Carl Bessai, so just my name. And Vince is...
I'm at Vincent Quigley, Quigley.
Okay. Why Quigley?
Quigley's my name. That's my birth name, and Gail is a newer family name.
I did not know this
Wow.
until the other day. My wife and I are both wondering if we can refer to you now as Sir Vincent Quigley.
Well, some people call me Captain Quigley.
So nice.
I give me Mr. Quigley to you.
Oh, I like it.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, look, we're going to support you. We're going to get the word out. We're going to get this out as soon as we can for you. And I just thank you so much for being part of this. And I wish you just the best of luck.
Oh, Bobby, can't thank you enough. It's been great to chat with you.
Bobby, if you're in Toronto, I think you live there. So if you're in Toronto on the 11th, and you can come over, even just to pop out, it'd be great to meet you live.
It'd be incredible.
Yeah. I'll come and see if I can bring some people.
Love
yeah,
it.
well, thanks for all the support, Bobby. It really means a lot.
For sure. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.